Luis Castillo, TJ, has a real shot to win the Cy Young. Not be in contention for it, to win it.
And there's a lot of things working in his favor, too. I mean, not only now is he second in the league in ERA, in the American League in ERA, he's now second in innings, so people get the volume they want. He's first in whip. What? I couldn't believe that when I saw that. I was like, it just really doesn't seem like he's allowed fewer base runners per inning than everyone else. But he has. And he's also got something that old voters love, Lyle. He's in first place.
I did want to talk about this because Garrett Cole, I think we can agree, is the front runner right now, right?
Yes. He is the odds-on. I have the odds here if you want to hear them. Garrett Cole's minus, this is from FanDuel. Garrett Cole's a minus 210, so he's the favorite. Castillo's second at plus 300. Gausman's right behind him at plus 700. That's the three that the sports books are really liking. Then after that, it's a bit of a drop-off. George Kirby is actually next after that at plus 2,300. But it's really a three-horse race right now in the American League. And if we're looking at situations and we're looking at exposure and we're looking at winning, which we know some voters do actually really like, Castillo's on top of that list.
So here's what I was going to pose. You look at the numbers. Garrett Cole leads in F4, in ERA, in xERA, FIP. He's actually got a pretty big lead in BWAR. F4, it's a little closer. They are tied in strikeouts. Luis, however, has the edge in whip, xFIP, strikeout rate, walk rate. So it is close. And there's a real world where Luis could pass Garrett Cole in a lot of these categories because a lot of them that Cole leads in, Luis is not far behind. If Garrett Cole and the New York Yankees were the team having a surging month of August in first place in their division, and two guys were neck and neck for this race, who would be the favorite? Oh, it'd be Garrett Cole because he's on the Yankees, East Coast, playing out of their minds. It's simple fact. So shouldn't Luis get the same credit? The fact he is the ace of a team that's the hottest in baseball right now and has a chance to win the AL West, where Garrett Cole is pitching unmeaningful games and has been for a few weeks now? I don't know. I'm just saying, if old voters are big on winning, Luis is winning. Garrett Cole's team isn't.
I think instead of asking me that question, you should ask it to John Heyman. I think you'll get a better answer.
Oh, you know John Heyman's voting for Luis Castillo. He's already mailed in his ballot. Oh, Yankee or Mariner? Oh, too easy for him.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. And it's unfortunate because even with Garrett Cole in last place, he might still win. He might just still win. I mean, again, he's got first place in a lot of these categories. And for the most part, I mean, if you asked any, I would say, semi more than casual baseball fan who pays attention to the entire league, who's been the best pitcher in the American League this year, they would probably say Garrett Cole. And they're not necessarily wrong. So in that case, it's like, well, okay, it wouldn't be the end of the world if he won the Cy Young. But the point you make there is phenomenal. If the roles were switched and you flip their stats over too, and it was Garrett Cole on the surging Mariners team, it would be a surging Yankees team. It wouldn't even be close. It wouldn't even be close. But Cy Young or not for Luis Castillo, I mean, we just need to really appreciate what we're seeing from Luis Castillo this season. I mean, even though sometimes in some of these starts, it really doesn't seem like, he's a Cy Young. I mean, to be honest, until maybe the last few weeks when people have really started pumping out his numbers, if you asked me if Luis Castillo had a real chance of winning the American League Cy Young this year, I'd probably said no. But you look at the numbers overall now, and he is. It's fascinating to believe for a stretch, I thought, in the middle of the season, which was kind of mediocre at times.
In case anybody couldn't hear the sarcasm in my voice a minute ago, there is no chance John Heyman is voting for Luis Castillo. We actually get into this a little bit with Jolly Olive in our interview today about John Heyman and his hatred for the Mariners. But yeah, he is a guy that will not be voting for Luis Castillo. Anyway, to your point, TJ, 3 of Luis's last 4 starts have been as dominant as he's pitched in a Mariners uniform, aside from the playoff start in Toronto. Look at his 3 outings against the Orioles, the White Sox, and his most recent one against the Royals. In those 3 starts, he has thrown 20 innings. He's given up 8 hits in those 20 innings and those 3 starts. He has allowed 2 earned runs, 4 walks, and 23 punch-outs. He has absolutely overpowered these lineups, including a really good Orioles lineup. And that Royal start on Sunday, nobody could touch him.
Yeah, and a couple of those starts he's had in that stretch, the Mariners gave him the ball as like, yeah, we have no bullpen left. Good luck. And you know what he's done? He is, as I labeled it in my notes, I know you love this part, where his X-Dog came out. You know how all the expected stats came out. His X-Dog went into the 100th percentile, and he went out there and he absolutely shoved. Here's this nugget on Luis. The Mariners were 10 out on July 19th when they played in Minnesota. Since that point, Luis Castillo has gone 6 innings in all 8 of his starts. He's gone 7 innings in half of them. That's what you want out of your ace. Even if the run prevention isn't totally down, I mean, you need that guy eating up innings, getting outs, and giving you a chance to win. And that's what he's done. And he really only had 1 blowout start in that stretch, a really strange game down in Anaheim where he gave up 7 earned, and the Mariners still won anyway.
Is Luis's X him in the 100th percentile too? He's him?
Yep.
Okay. So his X-Dog's in the 100th percentile and his X him is the 100th percentile. I think you should put that right in front of every East Coast voter's face and say, how are you not voting for this guy? He's a dog, he's him. And you'll have all these guys in their 70s being like, what is this terminology? It's like it's the meme of Steve Buscemi with the skateboard and the hat backwards. It's like, how do you do, fellow kids? That's what those East Coast writers will be seeing looking at those X numbers.
Yeah, how do you think you would explain X him to John Heyman?
He's him, John Heyman. Luis is him. He'd be like, yeah, he is. He is.
But Garrett Cole is my vote.
No, he'd be like, yeah, he is. He Luis Castillo is pitching well. It's like, yeah, but John, he's him. You just don't get it, dude. You just don't get it.
It's been so cool to see the Mariners' fingerprints on how Luis Castillo has sort of evolved as a pitcher. I didn't even realize this until it was brought up today. Adam Jude wrote an article in the Seattle Times that published today here on Monday, talking about the Mariners' attempt at going after the first pitch strike percentage record, by the way, which they are currently, if the season were to end today, they would have the highest mark of all time, passing the 2018 Dodgers. As a team, this Mariners pitching staff has thrown a first pitch strike 64.4% of the time. And, it goes with their philosophy. Throw first pitch, throw a quality pitch, but a first pitch strike every time. And Luis Castillo, when he was in Cincinnati, wasn't exactly a guy who had great command. I mean, his last full season he was there in 2021, he walked batters at a 9% clip. 2 seasons before that in 2019, which is his best season as a pro so far, he walked batters over 10% of the time. He walked a ton of guys. But now we get here to Seattle in his first full season with the Mariners, and his walk rate is now 5.5%. And as we mentioned earlier, his walks and hits per innings pitch, base runners per inning, is the lowest in baseball. That's the testament to the Mariners organization and to Luis absorbing that information and executing it out on the field.
Should we add in there that George Kirby ranks 3rd in WHIP and Logan Gilbert ranks 5th? The Mariners have 3 of the top 5 pitchers in baseball in WHIP. And for those who don't look at WHIP that much, it literally means you are not giving up base runners. Those 3 guys, who would probably be your 3 starters in a playoff series, do not let guys on base. Simple as that.
It's pretty good. And usually guys score runs by getting on base. When you don't let them get on base, they can't score. So, simple math.
Jason Churchill talked about it with us before the start of the season about the Castillo trade and the extension. He said he thought the Mariners always internally believed they could get even more out of Luis Castillo than he was showing in Cincinnati at the time that they traded for him. I think we're seeing exactly that. Walks are down, throwing more strikes, still striking guys out. He's done everything well. I mean, he looks so good right now, especially these last few starts where he has been at the top of his game.
Now, the big thing for Luis is he's going to need to finish strong. If there's one thing us Mariner fans know about Cy Young voters, there's a hell of a lot of recency bias. If he goes out there and has, even if the Mariners are solidly in a playoff spot, if he goes out there and has a blow-up start the second to last week of the season, and Garrett Cole doesn't, who do you think's getting votes? Yeah.
Well, considering Felix to this day should have still won the Cy Young in 2014, but because of one blow-up outing he had toward the end of the year, they yanked it away from him to give it to Corey Kluber.
Yeah, that's it. right? So Luis needs to finish strong, which we think he will. But he's also going to have his work cut out for him because this is also going to be one of the toughest stretches of the season. I mean, shit, he might pitch the way the rotation lines up. He might pitch twice against the Texas Rangers, which make you earn it. Their lineup is, despite their bullpen, their lineup still pretty good. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that for Luis as we go down the stretch.